wholly attractive, health, happiness. Now, today we're going to be discussing an important topic close to my heart. I've been trained to work with transgender clients from a transgender woman.
So yeah, I now am a licensed social worker. What I do for a living is work in mental health and substance abuse. Full time, I work in substance abuse and mental health, and then part time, I do some private practice work that deals mainly in mental health and couples therapy and family therapy. So that's that gambit. Then on my off days, which we'll call them off days, I am in the community doing what I can to advocate for domestic violence, and doing things like this, speaking about transgender experiences and things like that. So yes, originally from Texas, came up north to Ohio and met my wife, and we don't have too many plans of moving right now. So we'll be here for a little bit. It has been such a journey because when you met me at MySpace, I was a completely different person, going by a completely different name and living a completely different life. It's only been the last 5 years, I want to say, last 5 years that I've been actively participating in hormonal therapy. So it's not been long, but it has been quite a spiritual journey, quite a journey.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. And I want to thank you for having the courage to join me today and talk about your experience. And really, excuse me one second.
Yep.
Just because we need to support our transgender families. I know so many families torn apart by it. Mm-hmm. And you're kind of one of the inspirations for me doing this work. I am a certified hypnotherapist, and I have training to work with transgender client. A lot of it is out of scope for me. And so I would refer them to people like you who are licensed to handle, but I would be working as an adjunct. Yes. And so the training that I had really opened my eyes, but more than that, your journey kind of inspired me to want to be more supportive. I didn't know how to be at the time you were going through it, but I thought about you because I considered myself a mentor and maybe even in a parental role.
I still call you big sister.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you were really in my heart. And so you're about the same age as my oldest daughter. And so I kind of went through a little process with you, and it made me think as a parent, how could I be supportive of my child if they were going through this? And what are other families going through? And so we're going to unravel a lot of that. And I kind of went through a loss with you. I didn't tell you, but I kind of did. Yeah. Because that's something that's normal with any relationship. Yeah. Because the person I grew to bond with became different or was becoming.
Yeah, it's a grieving process. It's something that because before you start hormonal therapy, they have you go through therapy. And that is something that they mention, hey, your family is going to have to go through a grieving process because everything, all the hopes and dreams that your mother and father, grandfather, or whomever, was involved in your life actively, those dreams and those hopes have changed. And they have to go through a process of grieving that, okay, no, my daughter is not going to be getting married, my son is, and that's going to look different. I'm not going to be looking at my daughter who's carrying a child. I'm looking at my son who has a wife who's carrying a child. So it's a grieving process, and it's something that is completely understandable, because in every relationship, when things change, you have to grieve what you had to be able to build what you're needing and wanting to build.
Right. And so what I did, I imagined what I would do as a parent. We would have a ceremony. This is just me. I think about all this stuff. So I would have a ceremony in commemoration of the person that I gave birth to. And then at the same time, celebrate the person that I have now.
Yes.
So that's just something I thought about a long time ago when you were going through it.
Yeah. Yeah. I've actually heard a lot of people who have done that.
Really? I didn't know. This is just something I created in my own mind.
Yeah, a lot of people, because it's like a funeral. You know, funerals aren't for the dead, they're for the living. So it's something where you just get to really, okay, so this is where we are right now. And yes, I have love for you as my child, as when you were born, as my daughter, and all the things that I have for you. I have love for that person, but that person is now moving away, and you are presenting yourself to me as my son, and I need to be able to develop a love for my son. Because it's different. We don't like to say it, but it is. My mom, the way my mother spoke to me as her daughter and the way she speaks to me as her son are completely different. They do not match at all. So it's just different. And to be able to have that process kind of more, I guess you can say, physically commemorated, is helpful for a lot of people who are going through the process. Because it's simply being able to go, all right, bye-bye to this one lifestyle, but let's look at what we're going to be creating.
Mm-hmm. So Sam, tell me, what pronoun do you refer to as?
So I traditionally use he and him. They're male pronouns on my day-to-day life. But if you talk to my wife, she will tell you that it changes depending on what my energy is sitting in. Because she will, yes, I was going to say that to you, because I can only speak from my journey and my experience. And I know it's unique to some, because I've spoken with some trans men who hardcore identify as male, and that is who they are every day. And they have no desire to tell you about their history. They have no desire to mention to you who they were beforehand. It's just not something that they feel is necessary or may not be comfortable with. And I am one of those people who I'm okay with telling you. I don't like to tell people my dead name, but that's about it. I'm okay with letting you know, yes, I'm transgender, and yes, I identify as male today, but a few years ago was she, and telling you about the experience that I have. But I think that has a lot to do with what I do for a living. I understand that if we don't talk about it, then issues don't get brought up, which means things don't get dealt with. And then people end up in my office talking about how, well, my mom and dad didn't really understand what to do. And then mom and dad go, well, we didn't have any point of reference, so we didn't know how to get started.
Exactly. And that's where I come in as a hypnotherapist, because I want to support not just the individual, but the families of the individual. And so you're right, you have to talk about it, because we don't know. No. And congratulations, by the way, you got married. I did not know.
Yes. My wife, Leilani, is absolutely everything, and she's the most amazing thing that ever happened to me. I fully recognize that we as men need y'all. Y'all don't need us. So I'm thankful for her every day. Because since I have met her, life has taken a completely different turn. It's taken off for me in such ways that I didn't even imagine for myself. So it's been a beautiful experience. Thank you very much.
That's so good. Yeah. I'm glad you're happy.
Yeah.
And then let's talk about who you did talk about it a little bit, but let's talk about who you were and who you are, and what led you to the reality that you're not female. And tell us about that aha moment.
Got you. So it's actually one of the stories I really like to tell, because I was married once before, and my then wife, yes, I've been married twice, and I'm 29.
Okay. I'm out of the dark. We did lose.
It's totally fine. I left Facebook for at least a good 5 years, and just popped back up hey, I'm here. So yes, I was previously married, and my then wife 100% came into my life and served great purpose. I am still grateful for her, because without her, I don't think that I would have been able to get to this point in my journey, because it was her who recognized some things that I just couldn't really see. It was one day I'm just sitting on the couch and I'm just bawling my eyes out. And she comes home and she's like, sweetie, what's wrong? Like, what's wrong? And I'm like, I hate my body. I hate it. I don't like it. I don't think this is right. Like something is wrong. And she was like, sweetie, I think you have dysphoria. And I was like, what? Because I'm a Black trans man, there's not a lot of representation for trans men, period. But then there's even less representation for minority trans men. And then there's even less representation for Black trans men. So it was something that in my mind, and at the time, it sounded so ignorant, but I really didn't know. I was like, this is what white people do. Like, white people can transition from wherever to wherever, but like, that's not something that in my community is allowed, because it was not something that I had seen. So when she said dysphoria, I'm like, you confusing me with white people and you are wrong. But then I read it, of course, because I have a DSM. So I read it and I was like, wait, this fits. And she was like, let's just talk to somebody. And, you know, if you think it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. We can figure it out. And so what she did, because before she had met me, she was actually dating a Black trans man. And so she was like, let me give you his number and y'all just talk, you know, like just not on anything about me, but just about what his experience has been. And he kind of had explained, like, you know, he just had the day where he was just like, I'm not comfortable in this body. And the way I see myself and what I'm seeing in front of me don't match. And I was like, what, you have those thoughts too? And he was like, yeah, it was crazy to me when somebody said the same thing. But it really was what I had seen myself looking like and what I actually look like never really matched. But one, I'm from the South, which is extremely conservative. Two, I was raised by my grandmother, who is also a very, well, open yet conservative woman. So it wasn't something that was brought to me. I was not put in environments where I could see alternative lifestyles that maybe did not look like the traditional ones. It wasn't until I came to Ohio and turned 18 and started coming out as a quote lesbian at the time, and started going to gay bars. And I'm like, oh my God, drag queens, what is this? And seeing like all these alternative lifestyles that I was like, okay, so there's more out there. So after talking with him, he was like, yeah, like a lot of us have these visions of ourselves and we don't even know it. And so I was like, that explains a lot, because before I had spoken with him, I was doing drag kinging, and I would always feel so much more comfortable when I would go out to perform as a drag king. I was the most outgoing. I was the talk. Like I thought I was just
out of here. What did you do? Tell me. I missed it because I know you have like a poetic background and stuff.
Yeah, I just thought I was bee's knees, because as a drag king, so basically I was in woman body and would figure a way to present myself in a masculine way. So that would mean binding down my chest. There's facial hair that you can add. There's makeup for the jawline, like, and eventually I would present in a more male form. And I would go out and I would perform and I would have the best time of my life. And I remember that I would always stay in my costume for as long as possible. I was the one, like how women go, our heels, we don't take those off till we get home. Like I was the one that was like, I'm not taking my makeup off until I get home. There's no way I'm leaving here looking how I was when I walked in. And at first I thought that was just the performer in me of like, you know, I have to present this image, and, you know, until the club is cleared out, that image has to be standing. And then as I started talking with my then wife's ex, he was like, a lot of us go into kinging, and that's where we realize like, oh man, this is so much more comfortable. I'm so much more relaxed. I'm so much more able to be who it is I know I am. And I was like, well, this is making even more sense. And he went, you know, I have a therapist, talk with her, you know, and, you know, see what it is. And that's what I did. I'm one of those people that once I make my mind up about something, there's nothing you can tell me. I'm going to hit the ground running. So I talked with a therapist and she was like, have you been in therapy? I was like, yep, sure have. I have one that I've been with for about a year. She was like, so these are the things that will happen if you start hormonal therapy. One of her very first questions was, how do you envision yourself? And I told her, well, I'm in my mind, I am smaller and I have more muscle, and maybe there's a little bit of facial hair, and I have more of a cut abdomen and things of that nature. And she was like, all of that can occur with testosterone. I was like, are you kidding me? What? And she was like, yes, because my shape, the shape of my woman body, by any other woman's traditional standards, I got blessed because I was literally shaped like an hourglass. So I had wide hips and narrow waist. So that was great for attracting men. And even when I became a lesbian, for attracting the women who would like that. But for me, it was uncomfortable because I'm like, these wide hips don't fit. I always felt that I should be more up and down. And there was nothing I could do, no amount of working out. There was a point in time where I weighed like 114 pounds because I just wanted to be as small as possible. But that did not change the genetics that I had. My mother is blessed. So I still had like cakes for days and couldn't do anything about it. If I worked out, the muscles that got built were the ones that I didn't want to get built. So I still have cakes for days and a thin waist and like am just dreading what is happening. And so I got to that point where when she said that, I was like, all right, let's do it. And so she gave me my letter of referral. I got a letter of referral from my therapist who I had been working with at that time for about a year, and started hormonal therapy. It was that simple. And then once I started it, I had to talk with my family and let them know. And my mother it's so strange because when I read over your interview questions, you talked about support. And I was like, that's going to be a very funny story because it seems to be, it's ever changing as my family goes through their process. And I can't say that that's for everyone, but that's just been my experience. Because when my mother found out, or when I told my mother, like, hey, I'm transitioning.
And what age were you?
I was 24.
Oh, wow. Okay. But did she know prior to 24?
No, my mom knew that. So what my mom explained to me was like, when you came out as a lesbian, I knew that was coming because